Catering's around back, my man.
Why would a catering worker?
Are you supposed to be standing here?
I'm just observing. Get this man a towel. Looks like he's sweating through that discount linen.
Take this to table 12. Do your job.
One less confused worker ruining the vibe.
Ready for instructions, sir.
Pull the offer, freeze every channel, announce it tonight.
Understood.
You insulted the man who funded this entire deal. Marcus Kingston. He owns the Ashford Meridian Group.
He poured wine to the owner.
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to continue the story. At Black Voice Stories, every story reveals a deeper truth about life, courage, and humanity. Subscribe now, and let's continue this incredible journey together.
Marcus Kingston never asked to be noticed. That was the first thing anyone who truly knew him would tell you. He believed a man's worth lived in what he built quietly, not in what he flashed loudly. Some men needed a room to turn and stare. Marcus needed a room to forget he was even there. He stepped out of the black SUV at 7:52 p.m., the Atlanta air still thick with July heat, and the valet barely looked up. The Ambrose Grand Hotel glowed gold against the darkening sky, rooftop terrace strung with warm bulbs that swayed slightly in the breeze. Marcus wore a light gray linen shirt, sleeves rolled to the forearm, no tie, charcoal trousers, brown leather loafers with no socks. A simple steel watch sat on his wrist, the only thing on his body that had cost more than 4 figures. And even that he'd bought secondhand from a widow in Savannah who needed the money more than the memory. He liked it that way. Let them guess. Tonight the guests weren't guessing about him. They weren't thinking about him at all, because as far as this room was concerned, men who looked like Marcus Kingston did not attend galas like this one. They served at them. The security guard at the terrace entrance, a thick man named Otis with a lanyard and an earpiece, put a hand out before Marcus reached the velvet rope. Catering's around back, my man. Marcus didn't flinch. He reached into his breast pocket and produced a single black card, with a silver seal pressed into the corner, no name printed anywhere on its face. Otis turned it over twice, frowning, then waved him through with his ears burning red. The damage, though, was already done, because inside, the same energy followed Marcus everywhere he walked. A woman in a beaded emerald dress pulled her clutch tighter to her ribs as he passed her table. A man in a cream dinner jacket cut directly in front of him at the bar, without so much as a glance, muttering something about staff lines being on the other side. Marcus said nothing. He stepped aside, ordered water, and watched. If tonight went the way he needed it to go, he wouldn't have to explain a single thing to anyone in this building. Somewhere near the Champagne Tower, 300 guests were still talking about the same number. $786.4 million. That was the size of the merger between Halcyon Dynamics and the Ashford Meridian Group. A deal that had been whispered about in boardrooms from Buckhead to Midtown for the better part of a year. Nobody in this room knew the name of the silent partner who had made that number possible. They only knew a mystery investor existed, some shadow figure who'd wired the capital that gave Halcyon its leverage, and every person on that rooftop wanted to be the one who guessed his identity first. Guessing wrong all night long, and they didn't even know it. At 8:14 p.m., the host tapped the microphone, and the string quartet folded quietly into silence. Cameras swung toward a small stage framed by white orchids. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Halcyon Dynamics Summer Gala. Applause rose like a rehearsed reflex, polite and hollow, the kind of clapping that exists because everyone else is doing it. Marcus stood near a stone column at the edge of the terrace, close enough to see every face, far enough to remain a shadow among shadows. Tonight we celebrate a partnership 11 months in the making, the host continued, smiling with teeth that had clearly cost someone a great deal of money. A deal that will reshape not just this company, but this entire market. You could feel the greed thicken in the humid air, curling around the tables like smoke that hadn't found a fire yet. Then she appeared. Vanessa Holloway floated onto the stage in an emerald gown that matched the terrace lights, waving to the crowd like a queen greeting subjects she'd personally selected. Beside her stood her husband, Preston Holloway, CEO of Halcyon Dynamics, his slate gray suit pressed so sharply it looked like it might cut skin if you leaned too close. Everyone watched them. Everyone, except the one man in the building who actually owned the company they were about to marry their fortunes to. Whispers started before Marcus even moved a step. A server passed carrying a tray of chilled shrimp, and a guest leaned toward her friend. That guy keeps popping up where he shouldn't. Her friend laughed under her breath. Betty's trying to blend in. Cute suit, though, for a rental. Marcus kept his steps easy. His face stayed calm. The marble floor, the sound of his loafers, and somewhere, in the back of his mind, he thought about his daughter, Nia, 8 years old. Asleep at home, with her grandmother, unaware that her father was standing in a room full of people who had already decided what he was worth before he opened his mouth. He'd raised her alone since she was 3. Her mother had passed in a car accident on I-285 during a rainstorm nobody saw coming, and Marcus had spent the 5 years since learning that grief and fatherhood could occupy the same chest without one ever fully making room for the other. He didn't talk about it. He didn't need anyone's sympathy for it. But he'd learned something in those years, that most people in this room had never had to learn. That dignity wasn't loud, and neither was love, and the people who took the quiet weakness were usually the ones who'd never carried anything heavy in their life. Vanessa spotted him first. Her smile curled slow, the look of someone who'd found a target she'd been hunting all evening without knowing it. She whispered something to Preston, and his eyebrows dropped like a curtain falling. He stepped off the stage and walked straight toward Marcus with a tight, practiced charm plastered across his face. Sir, are you supposed to be standing here? Preston tapped Marcus's sleeve, like he expected him to flinch. Marcus kept his voice soft. I'm fine here, just observing. Preston chuckled, the sound sharp and performative. Observing, right. He snapped his fingers at a passing server. Get this man a towel. Looks like he's sweating through that discount linen. A few guests glanced over, trying not to stare, failing anyway. Someone whispered too loud near the bar. Who let him into VIP? Staff entrances on the other side, isn't it? Vanessa arrived next, heels clicking in a rhythm that sounded rehearsed. She lifted a glass of red wine off a passing tray, without even looking at the server who carried it. Then, looked Marcus up and down the way a person inspects something they're deciding whether to throw away. Sweetie, if you needed extra work tonight, you could have just signed up. Pretending to be a guest isn't the move. Marcus said nothing. His silence unsettled her more than any answer could have. She pushed the glass toward his chest. Go take this to table 12. They're waiting. He didn't move. Her smile cracked at the edges. Seriously, do your job. Preston snatched the glass from her hand before she could push further, raising it high, eyes sweeping the crowd like he was performing for an audience he already owned. Allow me, one less confused worker ruining the vibe. He tipped the glass forward and poured it straight down the front of Marcus's shirt. The wine hit warm and sharp, sliding down his collar in dark red lines that bloomed against the pale gray linen like something wounded. Gasps cracked through the crowd in a ripple that moved table to table. Someone near the ice sculpture whispered, loud enough to carry, "Yo, he actually did that." Phones lifted in a wave, screens glowing. Someone already recording before the wine had finished dripping off his chin. Vanessa laughed under her breath, the sound small and cruel. Maybe now he knows where he stands. Marcus wiped his jaw with 2 fingers, slow and unbothered. He straightened his shirt, turned, and walked toward the exit without saying a single word. A server whispered as he passed her station, "That man just walked out like he owns this whole building." Nobody believed her. Not yet. The hallway outside the terrace felt cooler, almost silent after the noise he'd left behind. Marcus walked steady, fingertips brushing the wine stain spreading across his shirt. He breathed once, slow, and pulled out his phone. The screen lit his face in the dim corridor. He tapped one contact. A voice answered on the second ring. Ready for instructions, sir. Marcus's voice stayed low even. Pull the offer. Freeze every channel. Announce it tonight. Understood. The call ended. No drama in it, just motion, the kind of calm that only comes from a man who has made harder decisions than this one before breakfast. A couple near the elevator bank watched him pass, half recognizing him from somewhere they couldn't quite place. That's the guy they drenched, the woman murmured, Her husband shook his head slowly. Rich folks never expect the quiet ones to bite back. The elevator hummed with soft jazz that faded into the walls. Marcus's reflection stared back at him in the brushed steel doors, steady eyes, calm jaw, wine soaking into fabric that had cost him $91 at an outlet store in College Park. A second message buzzed against his palm. Legal team confirmed. Everything's moving. When the doors opened, the lobby buzzed with guests stepping outside for calls and gossip, their laughter thinner than it had been an hour ago. Someone spotted the stain across his shirt. That's him. Another voice near the bar muttered. Something's off about that guy. You don't walk like that unless you're somebody. Marcus didn't slow down. Outside, the thick July air pressed against his skin, and for a moment he let himself breathe it in, let it sharpen his thoughts the way it always did. A valet rushed toward him with keys already jangling. Marcus lifted one hand. The valet stepped back, unsure of what he'd just witnessed. As Marcus crossed the driveway toward his car, the music inside the rooftop terrace swelled once, then cut dead in the middle of a note. Guests near the glass railing turned, confused, murmuring to each other. Why'd everything stop? One man asked. His date shrugged, eyes locked on her phone screen instead of answering. At the edge of the lot, Marcus's phone buzzed one final time. Announcement delivered. Partners notified. He locked the screen and slid it into his pocket. Behind him, the glass doors of the terrace burst open. Voices spiked. Chairs scraped hard against marble. A wave of panic rolled through the lobby like heat off summer pavement. Marcus didn't turn around. He stepped into the streetlight, shoulders loose, face unreadable, walking with the same quiet certainty he'd carried through the entire evening. Behind him, in the room he'd just left, the first tremor of the fallout was only beginning. Inside, everything broke at once. The music cut mid-note. Screens flickered. The host froze mid-sentence, smile still half raised, and a tall man in a navy suit rushed through the tables with a phone pressed to his ear, his face shifting from confusion to something closer to terror. He whispered something to the host, who went pale so fast a nearby guest thought she might faint. Preston noticed first. What's going on? The host swallowed hard. The signing suspended. The room erupted. Conversations collided sharp and overlapping. Suspended for what? A woman whispered to her partner. You don't freeze a $700 million deal in the middle of a gala. Vanessa tried to keep her composure, but her hand shook as she grabbed the host's arm. Who gave that order? The host looked almost afraid to answer. It came from the top, directives final. Preston's jaw locked. I'm the top. The host shook his head, quiet and certain. Not tonight. Across the room, executives stared down at their phones as alerts stacked one on top of the other, each one worse than the last. Every account tied to Halcyon just got frozen, someone blurted. Another voice cracked in from a nearby table. Investors are pulling out. My screen's all red. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras clicked again, faster this time. Even the servers had stopped moving, trays balanced forgotten on their forearms. Then someone near the terrace doors tapped a friend's shoulder. Look at this. The friend leaned in, eyes going wide. Wait, isn't that the guy they poured wine on? A video played on a phone screen, already spreading. The clip showed Preston tipping the glass, the splash landing clean down a stranger's chest, Vanessa smirking beside him. The caption underneath, added by someone who'd been standing close enough to catch it all, read, "They humiliated a man they thought was staff." He walked out like he owned the place. The clip spread through the room like fire through dry grass in July. Guests stared at their screens, then at Preston, then back at their screens. Phones lifted everywhere at once. Silence turned sharp and heavy. Vanessa grabbed Preston's arm. Fix it. Now, I don't even know what broke, he snapped back. Her voice cracked. Someone did this on purpose. A new alert lit up the main display screens behind the stage in stark white letters. Halcyon Dynamics contract terminated. Preston blinked hard, like the words might rearrange themselves if he stared long enough. No warning, no negotiation, just gone. A board member stormed toward him, face bloodless. This is catastrophic. Do you have any idea who you offended tonight? I offended no one, Preston barked. You offended the man who funded this entire deal. Vanessa's breath caught. Who? The board member's voice dropped low, like saying the name too loud might make it worse. Marcus Kingston. He owns the Ashford Meridian Group, all of it. Every share. A gasp rolled across the terrace. A server near the wall whispered to another. Told you he didn't walk like staff. The second server whispered back. They messed with the wrong man tonight. Badly. Preston looked around the room like the air itself had vanished. Vanessa pressed a hand to her forehead, her makeup smudging under trembling fingers. Her voice shook. We poured wine on the investor. The fallout hit full force. Guests backed toward the doors, some slipping out quietly, others staying to keep recording, phones held high, like torches at a vigil, for something that hadn't even died yet. Halcyon's future cracked apart in real time, right there under the string lights, and somewhere outside, past the valet stand and the streetlights, Marcus Kingston kept walking, calm and unbothered, 3 steps ahead of everyone still standing in that ballroom. Morning hit Preston and Vanessa like a truck with no brakes. Headlines flooded every screen before sunrise. The wine clip looped non-stop across every platform that mattered. Preston's arm tipping forward, Vanessa's smirk, Marcus's silence, all of it replayed in a loop that felt engineered to hurt, even though nobody had engineered anything at all. Comments dragged them without mercy. Investors bailed one by one. Partners vanished from group chats and boardroom calendars. Board members resigned overnight, their emails short and final. Most of them some variation of the same 6 words. This is no longer my problem. But the wine was only the beginning, because within 48 hours, 3 names came forward that nobody at Halcyon Dynamics had expected to hear again. The first was Rosalind Pratt, a former banquet server at the Ambrose Grand, who'd been fired 18 months earlier for, in Vanessa's own words at the time, not smiling enough while she worked. Rosalind was a single mother raising 2 boys on a server's wage in an apartment off Memorial Drive, and she'd been let go 3 days before Christmas without severance, without warning, without a single conversation about why. She posted a video at 6:03 a.m., her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. I want people to know this isn't new behavior. This is who they've always been. I just didn't have 300 witnesses back then. The second was Desmond Vega, 61 years old, a valet who'd worked events at the Ambrose for 11 years before Preston accused him of stealing a watch that turned up, weeks later, in Preston's own gym bag. Desmond was never reinstated. Nobody apologized. He'd spent the better part of a year rebuilding his reputation one shift at a time at a smaller hotel across town, and when a reporter reached him for comment, he said only, I raised 3 kids on tips and dignity. They took the dignity first and expected the tips to keep coming anyway. The third was Corinne James, a junior financial analyst who'd once worked directly under Preston, passed over for promotion 3 separate times, while colleagues with half her experience moved up around her. Vanessa had mocked her once at a company's function, loud enough for half the room to hear, calling her its distraction raising that baby alone, instead of focusing on her career. Corinne had quit within the month. She now ran her own consulting firm 2 floors below the very tower that once employed her, and when the video broke, she didn't gloat. She simply wrote 4 sentences that ended up quoted in every major outlet covering the collapse. I was told my life outside the office made me less serious about the one inside it. Turns out the people who said that were the ones who never took anything seriously at all. Dignity was never the distraction. Cruelty was. By noon, Halcyon's legal team had opened an internal investigation into a pattern of conduct spanning nearly a decade, discrimination complaints that had been quietly settled and buried, HR files that had mysteriously gone missing whenever Preston or Vanessa's names appeared in them. The State Labor Board opened its own inquiry 3 days later. 2 class action filings followed within the week, one from former employees, one from vendors who claimed they'd been shorted on invoices whenever Preston decided a relationship had run its course. Peyton barely slept. She sat on the edge of her bed that first morning, hands shaking, mascara smeared down both cheeks, phone buzzing every few seconds like it was mocking her personally. Preston paced the bedroom in yesterday's wrinkled shirt, hair a mess, having never actually gone to sleep at all. Every call ended the same blunt way, we're out, don't call again. By early afternoon, Vanessa finally said it out loud, her voice hollow. We have to talk to him. If we don't, everything is gone. Preston hesitated, jaw tight, then nodded, weak and out of options. They drove across town to Marcus's neighborhood, a quiet stretch of tree-lined streets in East Point. Ordinary houses with porch swings and bicycles left out on lawns, the total opposite of the chaos they'd woken up inside. When Marcus opened his front door, he studied them both with calm eyes, the kind that suggested the entire storm outside hadn't touched him at all. Behind him, faint and small, came the sound of a cartoon somewhere deeper in the house, his daughter's laughter drifting through the hallway. Vanessa spoke first, her voice breaking halfway through the sentence. We were wrong. We treated you like nothing. Please let us fix this. Preston's voice shook too. We lost everything. Just give us a chance to talk. Marcus stepped aside in the doorway, but he didn't invite them in. He kept his tone soft, firm, final. You didn't lose everything today. You lost it the second you decided a person's worth came from your own comfort. They stood there, silent, smaller than they'd ever been in their lives. You built a world, Marcus said, where you believed disrespect had no cost. Now you're just seeing the bill. Vanessa wiped her face, whispering. We didn't know who you were. That's the problem, Marcus said. You didn't care who I was. You didn't care about Rosalind, either, or Desmond, or Corinne. You only ever cared once the bill came due. Preston swallowed hard. Is there anything we can do? Marcus shook his head once, slow and final. The deal is gone. The trust is gone, and my door is closed. He stepped back into the doorway, already turning away, already finished with them. Walk carefully, he said. The world is smaller than you think, and it remembers longer than you'd like. They left with nothing. 6 months later, Halcyon Dynamics dissolved entirely, its assets sold off in pieces to 3 smaller firms, none of which kept the name. Preston Holloway faced 2 civil suits and a labor board judgment that cost him nearly everything he had left outside a modest condo in Sandy Springs. Vanessa's name disappeared from every board she'd once sat on, quietly and without ceremony, the way names disappear when nobody wants to be associated with them anymore. Rosalind Pratt used part of a settlement to open a small catering business of her own, one that now employed 11 people, several of them single parents she made a point of hiring first. Desmond Vega took a job managing valet operations at a boutique hotel in Decatur, where the owner had watched his interview and hired him within the week. No questions about his past required. Corinne James's consulting firm landed its largest client yet 8 months after the gala, a company that specifically sought her out because of what she'd said in 4 honest sentences. And Marcus Kingston kept living the way he always had, quietly, without needing anyone's applause. He still drove his daughter to school most mornings in a car nobody would look at twice. He still wore linen shirts that cost less than $100, and simple watches, and shoes without socks in the summer heat, because none of that had ever been the point. The point had always been the same thing it was the night he stood in that hallway, wiping wine from his jaw. A man's worth doesn't wait for someone else's permission to exist. It was there the whole time, whether the room chose to see it or not. His life kept moving forward. Their legacy stayed right there on that porch, cracked open, and never got picked back up. If this story moved something in you, even a little, do one simple thing before you go. Hit like, because it tells this channel that stories about dignity still matter to people. Subscribe if you want more of these, because there are more coming, and every single one carries the same message underneath it. And leave a comment telling us about a time someone underestimated you, and what happened next. We read everyone. This story is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to real people, companies, or events is purely coincidental. It was written to explore themes of dignity, respect, and the quiet cost of judging others by appearances alone.